Oh, just attacking me right away. What is in this place? It's just a exit to the north. Let's go down here. Goodies. DSB says, speaking of remakes, my gripe with people hating blindly on remakes is not knowing the difference between a remake and a retelling. Like the recent news of the new American Psycho movie. Yeah, Guadagnino's American Psycho. I'm excited about this. He's the guy who remade Suspiria. Or retold Suspiria, I guess I should say. People are up in arms about it, but they don't realize it's based on a book. Yeah, American Psycho is a Bret Easton Ellis book. So it's like, it's not even just a retelling. It's a re-adaptation of the source material. It's like, it's not even necessarily trying to be the first film. Yeah, totally. I'm 100% with you on this. Like, people just really, I think a lot of people performatively, and I don't mean that in a, like a cynical way, but I think people get like caught up in the performance of disliking something and like they want to take out their rage at what they see as like a bad trend. They're like, oh, there's no original ideas. It's remakes are killing everything. So we have to hate remakes no matter what their value is. But it's like a lot of remakes and sequels and stuff like that are just good art in general, you know? So.
So it seemed I was in the land of William the Just. 50 years before the battle I had just escaped would take place.
Huh. Raph says the new American Psycho is by Luca Guadagnino. Yes, it is. So I guess I just got sent back in time. That's interesting. I don't really... How was I supposed to put that together? I guess just listening to him. I guess that was probably Mobius in the cutscene then. He went back in time too, maybe? Raph says, interesting how the first adaptation was by a woman and the second one would be by a queer man. I mean, Bret Easton Ellis, right? Source material. That's all I gotta say. Read literally anything by the guy. It fits. It makes sense why Guadagnino would adapt it. That's for sure.
The Heart of Darkness.
Oozclock says, in the case of Disney remakes, at least, a factor is probably that the original was a formative part of their childhood and they can't separate the experience from the work, let the remake stand on its own. Yeah, I mean, like, I think, you know, I have worked on a few of the Disney remakes. I won't be specific about which ones, but I don't even necessarily think they're great movies. Like, there are issues with a lot of them, and I think that it's really valid to dislike those. There's plenty of things to talk about when talking about the Disney remakes. The thing that is very interesting to me, and this is an especially online phenomenon, is people being like, who asked for this? No one likes these movies. They're just bad. And like, this is actually like an example of like what I mean by like the discourse being polluted and like very, the like focus testing style of like mass appeal is like really dangerous. And this is going to come as a surprise probably to a lot of people, but those Disney remakes that allegedly no one asked for or wants, hate to say it, but they make a lot of money and a lot of people go to see them and a lot of people really want them. They are extremely successful by all metrics. And like, so when people are like, no one asked for these, it's like, actually, that's objectively false. Now, I'm not saying those are good movies. I don't really like most of them. I think most of them are just like fine. Or like whatever. I didn't love Beauty and the Beast. I didn't love Lion King. Like, I think the meanest thing I can say about most of them is that they just kind of, like, I don't see a point to them. But it's like, I don't see a point to them. but other people do, and they are mostly the same movies, you know. And we can argue and talk about the quality of the craft on display in them, right? Because, like, I think, for example, the Lion King remake, like, that's like a tech demo movie. Like, it existed to test technology. Just as an example, the way that it was filmed, quote unquote, was technology Disney later used to film things on volume filming, using game engines for filming, which is like, that was like a big reason why that movie even existed, was so that they could test that technology, right? And that's like a big deal. Like, there's a reason why this thing exists even outside of public perception. And there's commendable things about those films that people don't talk about because they're like, it ruined my childhood. And it's like, yeah, I get it, but like, the old movie still exists and the new one doesn't make it any worse. Like, worst case scenario, someone watches it and they love it and they have positive feelings, and that's fine and it's whatever, and then they just go about their lives because most of these people aren't participating in this online discourse. Or it's a bad movie and it makes no money and no one cares about it and it dies, you know? Like if people are worried about the pop culture legacy of these films, it's not like Lion King original was like delisted from Disney Plus. Like, all those things exist, right? And yeah, it is something I think about very frequently, is like, again, another great example, Silent Hill 2 remake was phenomenal video game. Just one of the best to do it this year. And people were so against it from the start. And like, I'm going to be upfront about it. Like, there really wasn't much reason to be that scared about that game. A lot of the logic behind why people thought it was going to be terrible came from a very bad faith reading of Bloober Team and their previous projects. And I'm saying that as someone who doesn't like most of their games. But if you look at their projects, right? Like, they generally make better games than their previous games with each new one. The things people complain about them are their writing. All of this led up to believe that, like, maybe Silent Hill 2 would be fine. You know what I mean? Like, there was... If you're a logical person who looks at evidence and then makes conclusions, you had very little reason to be super worried about SH2 Remake. But people went with it, and they were like, it's bad, it's a remake, it's by Bloober Team, they have no idea what they're doing, Konami mishandles the franchise. And, like, yes, those individual facts are true, but the actual context of those facts as they relate to the experience of the game that people are rallying against was not necessarily indicated, right? Like, it wasn't... Nothing that...
The stronghold of William the Just. 'Twas time for me to pay a visit.
I don't have my correct skill.
Become the nemesis and force Nosgoth on its knees.
The outspoken hatred or, like, predetermined decisions made about that game's quality did not line up with the actual end result of that game. And, like, anyone who took 2 seconds to think about it and not just knee-jerk react emotionally could have seen that coming. Because I've been saying since the start, it could be really good. You know, maybe it's terrible, but, like, I'm not given any reason to believe it will be. And then it turned out to be an amazing video game. You know what I mean? Like, literally one of the best games of the year. And, like, just an incredible remake overall. So, like, it's just, like, you know, it's just crazy. It's just, people are very not out of touch, that's not the right word, but, like, people want their rage to feel like it means something, I guess, is, like, a good way of putting it. And they want to apply their rage because it feels, we live in a system that makes it feel like people, like, don't have a lot of options for adjusting change or, like, creating change. And thus, when they get mad about something and then talk about it online, they want to feel like it's going to solve a problem. So they ascribe or prescribe their anger towards things that they think are a problem, right? And remakes are, like, an easy target for that. So I get it. I do think it's a little bit myopic, but that's fine. There's worse things to be out there. Save point. Yippee! But I've talked about this topic a million times on my channel and on podcasts and stuff, and people know my feelings about it. In general, I'm kind of a broken record on this topic. It's not particularly... I'm not saying anything new.
Save Victus! Save Victus! Save Victus!
Alright, well...
Save Victus! Save Victus!
knock him out.
Save Victus! Save Victus!
I forgot what I was doing. There we go. I was like looking at this and was just like baffled. I just didn't know what I was looking at for a second. There we go. Let's see.
Oh, please, help me, kind sir.
Why can't I drink blood? Oh, I'm in mist form. I'm like, why can't I drink their blood? What the heck? They're just sitting in poop water, and that's their torture. They stinky. But yeah, like, honestly, the last thing I want to be known for is, like, being, like, a rage gamer who hates things. Like, it's not my vibe. I'm not actually into that. So when I play terrible games, it's, like, not actually a good experience for me. I find it academically interesting, and that's why I finished Wukong, is because there was an academic value for me playing it on a personal level, but it's not great for people to be like, oh, it's Toaster, the one who hates Wukong. I'm like, well...
Save Victus! Save Victus! Save Victus!
Raph says, it depends on what you focus on. If you like superhero stuff in Disney, it can feel like a lost battle. But if you like horror, horror's in a great place. Yeah, horror's in a fantastic place right now. One thing I will say, though, is, like, even, like, superhero stuff, this is a topic I've talked about a billion times. But people are also just, like, up in arms about superhero stuff in a way that I, like, think is not actually representative of the status of media. Like, yes, there's something to talk about when it comes to, like, corporations ruling the world and, like, Disney dominating the box office always, and, like, everyone being interested in one type of thing. Like, that can be a problem, right? But I was on Tumblr in 2009 through 2013 or whatever, and I remember when Avengers came out, and suddenly all of these people in my life that I used to go to the movies with, and they were like, oh, you just like art films, like you always think about themes, like that's nothing I think about. I just like action, right? Like I just go to the movies because it's like a fun thing to do, right? All of those people after Avengers and like Captain America Civil War and stuff like that, like those movies, were suddenly being like, wow, the character writing in this is really interesting, and like it's so fascinating that Captain America is about like the military industrial complex. And I sat there and thought about this thing, and I was like, is it not objectively a good thing that even if the movies that the low bar are accessing right now are, and when I say low bar, I don't mean that in like a hateful way. I just mean like people who are not normally super engaged in film. If these super popular popcorn films for everyone can encourage that degree of media literacy for people like that, is that not an objective good for art? And I think that persists. Like, I think that the average Marvel movie, even the worst average Marvel movie, I mean, literally look at their catalog, right? As in Marvel Disney, not Marvel Sony's weird Marvel knockoff garbage. You look at most of those films.
Weapons you have provided will see to that. Pray tell, Mobius, what game do you play?
None, my lord. I only wish to aid you in vanquishing your foes. The weapons are but a token of my goodwill.
And the news you bring, a vampire said to slay me? Where did you come upon such knowledge?
'Tis of no consequence, sire. 'Twas only out of concern for your majesty's life.
Perhaps. Very well, then. You may leave me now, but should I wish to speak to you...
I will know, your majesty, and I shall be there in time.
So as I was saying, even taking like Eternals, right, which I think is not a very good movie, the average level of craft on display in that film and the average level of like normal people getting what that movie is about is higher than 20 years ago in 2002 during the early digital filmmaking era, where people watched some of the worst movies that have ever been made routinely and like we're like, this is good, this is fine, you know? Like, I think people underestimate the value of, for lack of a better word, well-made lowbrow media. And that isn't to say that I think Marvel films or the latest Star Wars movies or whatever are like particularly incredible or noteworthy. I do think that people generally attribute to them more malice than is, or people feel about them more malice than is necessarily deserved. And there's other aspects of that discourse that is like absolutely worth talking about, again, like the idea of corporate ownership of theaters and, you know, IP and what that means for film as an industry. And I say that as someone who was directly affected by that, as someone who worked in film during this period and who has worked on Marvel and Disney properties. But it is, I think in general, again, that's like an example of like people not being fully informed about the big picture of what these things do. Now, do I think that all movies should be Marvel films? No. Like, my point is more, if people want to go to the theater to see something and the quality of that absolute bare minimum engagement is higher than it has been, that's probably a good thing. And it will create better film viewers. The issue is when people don't engage and they continue to interact in ways that are not particularly meaningful or constructive. And the same thing can be said about video games too. Raph says, I think in my case it's mostly, like you said, a type of narcissism. I don't think most modern Marvel movies are bad. I just keep thinking how I wish they were interesting again. See, I'm in a weird spot with this, and this is just kind of my take, but I actually think the current like phase of Marvel films are interesting, just not in the way that most people think. I've talked about this before, but I'll re-summarize it. Like, people are saying, like, you often see the complaint that Marvel films are like studio mandated, right? But Phase 4 is the most experimental Marvel films have been maybe ever. every single director who has worked on those films in Phase 4 has a completely different style, a completely different script style. The films visually look very different from each other. And like, so you see people often being like, these movies are all studio mandated and generic. They need to give creators more free reign. But if you actually like watch those movies, and I'm not saying you specifically, Raph, like haven't done this, I'm just saying like in general, this is the discourse that you hear. If you actually watch those movies back to back, they could not be more different. Even on a thematic level or like an arc level, they're just so wildly separate from each other that it's like, it makes me wonder if people are watching the same thing. Because I think there's a lot to be said about how creativity is in like craft is not always about just being like an unhinged creative with no boundaries, right? Like, that's not to say, that's not like a defense of the studio system. That's just to say like Eternals is one of the most Chloe Zhao movies ever made. And that's one of the reasons why that movie is a mess. Like, you know, Raph says, I actually liked Agatha All Along, all the 3 episodes I watched. Agatha All Along was fun. Totally fun show. I think most of the Marvel TV is pretty good. Like, I don't have any huge complaints about it. I feel very similar to it as I do Star Wars. Like, it's just like, you know, pretty good. How do I get in there? Uzclock says, didn't people pan the last Thor movie because of how much freedom the director was given? Yeah, most of that movie was like improv scenes because that's what people liked about Ragnarok, and that was like the legacy of Ragnarok. And that movie had some other issues, like production-wise, that created problems. But yes, that movie is just like a mess because it has no through line basically at all. It's a really big disaster. That movie was not very good. That's actually like low-key my pick for least good Marvel movie. Like, I don't love Quantumania, but I do think Quantumania got like a worse rap than it deserved while Thor Love and Thunder, like, just people like give it a pass. And I'm not saying that that's not 100% true, because people do dislike Love and Thunder, but there was a remarkable smaller amount of hatred for Love and Thunder than there was for Quantumania, which was like very shocking. Nara Goat says the one with the goat scream. I have no idea what you're talking about. That's blue. That's blue. Were they blue before? What am I not understanding about this puzzle? Is there like a switch I'm obviously missing? What am I not getting about this? Truly, what am I not understanding? There's 4 switches. I pressed all of them, then I pressed the secret one inside that room. What do I have to do? What do I gotta do to get in there? Is it just like a number of switches puzzle? Is that it? Do I just need to do some arcane combination of them? Bet I do. This is going to be annoying. Oh, hell yeah. Okay. We got it. Ooh! You know what? Give me your blood. Very good. Again, I'm not trying to sound like a know-it-all. Like, that's not really... I don't really care about how my opinions are received. But I do encourage people to try to think about things slightly differently. Less negatively, I think, is a good idea. Not that I'm accusing anyone in chat of being like that. That's not what I'm saying. I just mean, in general, the human population. Be critical, but don't be destructive. That's kind of my
Yes, the vampire
idea.
Mobius told me you would come.
We got wrecked.
The heart of darkness.
I got to probably use a different weapon. We'll take it. Oh no. Can I cast this again? No, ooh, that's not what I wanted to cast. I forgot that I can't cast things with Soul Reaver equipped. Flame sword. Sure.
Chaos armor.
And then...
The heart of darkness.
DSB says, Love and Thunder had issues, but the biggest issue was having Christian Bale as a villain and doing nothing with him. Definitely a big problem with that. It really squanders a lot of effort that it puts in because of that. I think I have to... My guess is I have to use the Soul Reaver on him. So
The Soul Reaver.
there we go.
As his guards rushed to save him, William the Just's blood was already renewing my strength, replacing the life his sword had stolen from my veins. The poor fools, come to aid their fallen leader. Let us have some amusement.
Neat. I guess I don't really need to wear this blood armor because I'm going to be hitting things with fire sword, so...
A time streaming device. Strange. When coincidence seems too convenient, I prefer to call it fate.
Okay. So we went forward in time now, I think.
With William the Just dead, Mobius's plans have been thwarted. His pawn was removed from the game.
So we went back in time and killed William the Just. But I can't remember how time travel works. If I remember correctly, like, fate is predetermined in this series, I think. So, like, this just means what we did was always going to happen, and Nemesis and William the Just, or whatever, were never alive at this point. I think? I don't remember. It's been a minute. Cool. What do I need to do right now? Okay, I can actually use the flame sword on these dudes, and they actually stop.
The Heart of Darkness.
Wait, literally just to walk out of the castle? Is that all I'm doing right now? What the hell? I don't know what's going on. Huh? Beep. I think they're making me replay the level. That's what they're doing. Are these just like peasants? Yep. Huh. Interesting. Give me your blood. Is the whole temple just a slightly different layout now? I say temple, geez. I mean, really in Zelda speak now. Is the whole castle a different layout? It seems to be. Okay, those are open. What am I doing? What is going on? I am so lost. I am in a different room. What the hell? Wait, what? My brain. We gotta find our way out of this nightmare castle. Holy smokes. Okay, I can't turn that off. So what I have to do is go in here, press this probably, and then leave through this hole. In and out of holes, baby. And does this open this? It does. Okay. Where even am I? Truly. Okay. I see. Did I already come over here? I think I did. I did not. Let's see. This is a weird way to pad out the game. I gotta say, I'm not loving the return trip. Mostly because I don't remember the layout of this castle, basically, at all. I mean, this has got to be close to the end, right? Oh my god.
The Heart of Darkness.
DSV says, I would have liked it if Sam Raimi went even wilder on Multiverse of Madness. I would have liked that too. I don't know if that's necessarily studio mandated. I feel like a lot of that just comes from his sort of the things he learned from Spider-Man 3. I think he was trying to avoid those issues. Because he's very vocally like anti Spider-Man 3. He did not like working on that movie.